Well, hey everybody, it's HeapCVA. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to 2017. I hope that the new year is promising for you as it is for me. Let's talk about what we're doing right this minute. Notice I'm not in a game. I'm waiting for updates to be issued from the 3 that I'm playing that are early access. And of course, the holidays kind of mess with the scheduling on all 3 of them, to be honest with you. The emergency call 112, the emergency or emerge NYC, and the 911 operator game both had talked about pushing out updates, and not any of them had actually made it to the finish line for multiple reasons. That's okay. I kind of figured it was going to happen. So I thought I'd do some other things while I'm waiting. I've actually been playing some other games. I've got to start videoing those and putting them on the channel. It's just that I like to play through once to make sure I know what I'm doing before I show you, and you watch me trip enough as it is. So this is a tutorial section that I'm going to create a playlist for, specifically for 911 first responders / emergency 4. And it's strictly to help people that want to do something beyond playing the basic game, which is fun just by itself. It's very German in character, in its look. But there are so many mods for this game, as you've seen. I have about half of the available mods that exist out there. Are there a bunch more being made every day? No. But there's plenty to do, and it has extended the life of a game made some time ago well into, 2017 if we're lucky. So this is going to be tutorial number 1, and it's more of an overview of the game and its file organization, so that as you start to get your mind around going to the next step, if you will, and starting to modify how the game plays and adding mods and doing some other things, that you know where to look to find that information or to find the device that makes that work. And we're going to go through those things in very good detail in upcoming tutorials that are coming out. I've got notes written for 4 tutorials right now. I had 3 of them videoed. I got to can them. I'm actually shooting this video at 1920 by 1080 on my monitor so that the picture is big enough for you to see. If I use my regular native resolution, which is much bigger, 2560 by 1440 or something like that, on a 28-inch monitor, the text is too small to video. It looks terrible. So I'm just in the regular 1920 by 12 or 1080. It's got a little bit of a fuzz to it, but it's not too bad. In fact, now my glasses don't know what to do because it's much larger than I'm used to. But anyway, enough of that stuff. Let's get started on the tutorial. What I don't want to do is waste a lot of time yakety-yakking, going off on tangents, and doing all of that stuff. I want to get these out with the correct information on how to do's and let the questions come back and then make adjustments accordingly. So this tutorial, number 1, is going to be on the file organization of the game itself, whether it's called 911, First Responders, or Emergency 4. The game underneath is all the same. So I have a Steam version of this game. I purchased it off of Steam as a download. So mine is buried in Steam's directory system through Steam apps. All of my Steam games are in the same location. If you bought yours outside of Steam, whether it was a download or you had a CD you could put your hands on, it might be farther up the chain underneath Program Files x86. I'm pretty sure that everybody's going to have it in that particular folder. There's two, one with and one without the x86. And sometimes the game and sometimes the Windows will decide where it belongs. And if you have the game as a standalone, you didn't get it from Steam, you bought it from 16 Tons, who was the instigator of this game way back when. They might have sent you a download, and it could be the initial file folder that you see is 16 Tons, and under that is the game name, Emergency 4. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't make a folder that says Emergency 4 Global Fighters for Life. That's a lot to type. It could be as short as EM4. So just know that it shouldn't be too hard to find that, what I call the master folder for the game. So here we are in it, in my file manager. And you have the master folder, which for me is 911 First Responders. I have two other subfolders, if you will. One says data and one says mods. You can guess what the mods folder has in it. We'll see that in a minute. And then you have all of these basic files, some of which we'll talk about, that are just in the main file. Most of them have to do with higher level operation. So if you look at this one here, it says editor manual PDF, Adobe PDF file. It's how almost everything comes to you anymore that you read. That's talking about the manual that comes with the game. It should download and install in this directory when you install the game. If it doesn't, something is wrong, but it should. This is where mine has been from the moment that I owned the game. The manual doesn't show you how to play the game. We'll tell you nothing about that. But if you want to make a mod, it'll show you how to make a map. And it's a little bit of a translation from, I believe, German, but it's enough to get you through the initial steps. That and spending some time on the forums should get you to a point in developing a mod, which we're a little ways away from yet, but that's what the manual's for. So if you want to read it, be my guest. It should be in there. I would love to hear from you guys. If you've looked in your base folder and you don't find the editor anywhere, the manual anywhere, you didn't get it, because we need to find out why. So right underneath that manual line is a file called EM4, which is short for emergency 4, .cfg, which is configuration. And we're going to open that file. And here it is. So it says config right there, so there's no doubt about it. If you start getting to the point where you want to go beyond the base game, or you just want to improve your gameplay in the base game, most of your changes are going to happen in this file. And this thing, which is all numerically based, with the exception of color, because colors are both numbers and letters, are almost all numeric values. There's one right here that is how to change the player name. So there I am right there. You can put any name in there. I think it will look at Steam if you don't do anything. There's a whole bunch of them in here. There's a whole line of them. Some of them are things that are easy to figure out. Others takes a little bit of investigative work to figure out what it really does. Some I've heard people say don't fool with that. I've seen other files that people are like, well, if you do this, it does this. And I mean, it could go anywhere you want. So just know that it's here. We're going to be spending a lot of time talking about this in some of the upcoming tutorial videos. So let's go back to here. The next link is one that I can click on it only into the thing where I can say run as an administrator, because I run my games as an administrator. I hate when I do that. I'm trying to force myself to always click from this side other than this side. If I accidentally click over here, things get worse. Actually, I need to get it farther away. Anyway, this is one of the places that you can double click and the game starts. Simple as that. So this is also where when you do a link on your desktop, it's coming back to here. So next one down is something called log file text, and I'll open it for you. I'm not going to scroll through it because it's like 57 pages. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it's over 40. I know that for a fact. What's important about this file is that it overwrites itself every time you start the game to include anything new. Let me scroll down a little bit. It's going to be kind of blurry for you, I apologize, but it's the best I can do. Notice that it knows all of the mods I have installed. If you start a mod, it knows to look in that folder for some of the stuff it needs in addition to what it does from the basic game, so that it plays appropriately. It knows about your computer a little bit. It knows what operating system you have. And one of the big things about it that you may or may not ever look at is that it will log when you have a crash. So if something goes south, it may log in probably a cryptic sentence or statement why it might have crashed. Just know that it's here. Keep your fingers crossed. You never have to open it. You can look at it if you want. There is some stuff in here that's kind of interesting if you're kind of a computer nerd. If you're not, I just make sure it's still in this directory. Don't fool with it. I mean, it's not going to affect your gameplay unless you had a crash. But it's there. I've maybe read mine. I had some crashes with the Montana mod, and I went to the log file to see some stuff. It didn't give me any information I needed, but it did state that there was crashes. So it's doing something. The next line after that is the modinstaller.exe, which is short for executable, which is just the computerese word for start a program or a routine. This is one of the ways to install mods into the game. Remember, that's what that folder's for. And when you want to play a mod, and that little radio looking thing or pager looking thing that when the game starts, when you tell it to go to the mods instead of the regular game, it's telling it to look in that folder. So this is one of the ways to install certain types of mods into that folder. You may or may not know there are several types of mods, and the files that were created for those mods. And so you have to know at least 2 different ways to get your mod installed. So just keep that in the back of your head. There is a mod or a tutorial on my channel on that very subject. I'm just going to redo it and add some pictures, better pictures to it. So just know that it's there. Down a couple. I'm not going to open the DLLs. They have to do with running things behind the scenes. My thought process is if it's not broke, don't fool with it. And so I just leave them alone. Maybe one of these days we'll open them up and see what they actually are. But for today, that's a little out of our comfort zone. The next one is the Readmetxt. And the only reason I'm bringing this particular document up, for me, it's entertainment because it dates the game by what the minimum and recommended operating configuration is for a computer. For those of us that have newer computers that we know were expensive, they have big video cards in them, they have lots of RAM, you have multiple hard drives, you're using an SSD drive. This stuff sounds like it's from the Stone Age. If you're one of those that has an older computer because that's what you can afford, or it was given to you by somebody else, you got big brother or big sister's old computer, and you can, check your email, and sometimes you can look at some stuff, but for the most part it runs too slow for any of the games. I'll tell you right now, if your operating system is between Windows 98 and Windows 7, you can play this game. You can play most of the mods. At least you'd have something to do. So there's an upside as well. But for the most part, I wouldn't come into this document for anything anymore because we've passed this by. There's very little in here that you need to deal with because our computers surpass their minimum configuration by 100 miles, probably a couple hundred miles. But it's there, and it's interesting to look at. You might have an old laptop or something that somebody gave you or you found, or you got it for a couple of bucks at a swap meet. If it has this on it, and it has 1 gig of free space on a hard drive and 12 megs of RAM. Remember, megabytes, not gigabytes. We're in the gigs now of memory. I have 16, and I'll be going to 32 here shortly, gigabytes of memory. This only looked for 12 megabytes. That's cool. With the Intel video chips that are on the motherboards for those particular devices, it should run this game with no problem. Will it run every game that's out there? No, and no. But you take what you can get with an old computer or one that's really not made for gaming. So just something to think about. I don't want to slam the door in anybody's face. Not everybody has a bunch of money to throw down on new computers all the time. Even for me, seeing some of the prices on stuff, man, it makes you swallow hard when you see the cost of a new video card. $900? Holy mackerel, you used to be able to buy a computer for $900. So, it's one of those things that kind of keeps you up at night. So let's go down the list, continue to go down the list. You'll see there's a bitmap, which is just a picture. And then the Steam app ID text. For me, because I opened it with WordPad, doesn't have much on it, does it? That has to do with how Steam sees the games that are in your folder, because all of my Steam purchase games are in that folder. And if you wanted to start the game from inside Steam, which you can do, that way you get the overlay. I don't like the overlay. It gets in the way, and it eats memory. It's a way of starting your game if you don't want to double click the icon on the desktop or come into the folder and open this one up here. And all it does is say, oh, it's that game. And it opens it for you. There's nothing else to that. It just adds that in addition to the base file so that it can index it the way it wants to. And the last thing that's in this open master file is uninstall.exe or executable. And that's if you want to uninstall the game. And I hope it's just because something got corrupted and you had to uninstall the game, and then you're going to add it back on to fix whatever was not working, corrupted. If you didn't like the game, well, I can't imagine you paid too much money for it. Put some mods on it. It may change your outlook. That's all I can tell you. So that's the other one that's in this particular group that's worth knowing about and knowing where it is. Like I said before, the em4.config file, you're going to be in a lot if you start to change the way you play this game. You're going to have to be in the config file to do some things. And the next video we'll talk about one that's easy to do, and it really improves gameplay whether you just play the base game or you're playing in a mod. So let's look at the data file real quick. In here, oh my goodness, more folders. Each one of these folders has folders inside of this. Some of these have a ton of folders in them. Models and prototypes are two folders that are need to have each other, basically, because they have what they call models is what we would say, hey, I did this in Z Modeler and made this little building that I'm going to put in the mod. So you have some of that information for that 3D model in the models folder, and then you'll have some of that information in the prototypes folder. And then you'll have scripts and UI, and if you did a vehicle, you'll have. So there's a lot to do and a lot to learn. So that's why I can't go through this entire directory, subdirectory, because we'd be here till midnight. There's so much stuff that's in these folders. You don't realize it, that there's that much in this game, that it's loading that much. That's why it takes a little bit. And if you're loading a mod, you notice you can't move the mouse. It's because there's so much to load, and then you added the extra stuff that it's got to load to run the mod. So that's the data folder. If you didn't have these folders in here, your game would not function. And even if you could get it to start, there would be nothing on the map. There may not even be a map. This folder right here is maps. It's where all of the maps exist for the base version. And some of those are pretty good size files. You can make pretty good size maps nowadays because the monitors are bigger, resolutions are better. And so you can make a pretty good size map. Well, it kind of crunches on that storage a little bit, but it affects how long it takes for the game to load. Let's go back to 911. Let's look at the mods folder just for a split second. You'll see all my mods loaded here. The ones that I'm currently using and the ones that you get to see videoed. I don't do a lot with Harbor City because it's a multiplayer map. I do play it single player, but you know, there's so many others. I've been kind of going around this one. I have done Iowa City, which is just a spin-off of Harbor City. You'll see down here that there's a couple that have a very funny extension called the E4 mod extension. I was talking about, when you look here at the mod installer, it's a little program that's not very big. You can see it. It actually will just sit in the center of the screen. You can actually see your file manager behind it. E4 mods can be installed with the mod installer very easily. It likes them. But they aren't as common, at least to me, as zip and 7 Z and one or two other compression programs, which need to be installed a different way. So there is that out there. So let's go back. One thing I should tell you, and I'll mention it again later, but I'm going to mention it now. When you get your game installed, if you're new, the em4.cfg file is very important. And you're going to make changes to it. But you should have a clean, unchanged copy of this somewhere on your computer. Copy it and put a copy somewhere else on your computer. That way, if you make a mistake here or something goes south, change this out first thing. And then go back through and start over. We're going to get into some changes that there's some little tiny things that make the difference between a change functioning and a change crashing the game. So it's important to know those differences when we get to them. So with that being said, we're at the end, I believe, of tutorial number 1. I apologize for my ability to speak tonight. I'll keep trying. I should be able to get better at it. It's just an overview of the files. The only information that you're really going to take away from this is that it doesn't matter what name you have for this game. If you've got an old copy or a new copy, or you've got the game from somebody else you know, the gameplay underneath it is the same. The organization of the files is the same. My 911 First Responders folder has EM4 files in it. So don't freak out about that. It's not going to hurt anything. You can play all the mods that are available, the ones that work, and everything should work out real good for you. So that's this tutorial and the file organization of this game in a quick and dirty overview. So with that said, thanks again so much for coming by. I appreciate it. I'd love to hear your comments, compliments, criticisms, and ideas for other tutorials that you might want to see that are related to this game. That's how things get better on my channel. I believe that's how things have gotten better in the last 3 months, is because of the input from people that leave me comments. So don't be afraid. I'm working as hard as I can to put the best content I can up on my channel. I hope that it's of interest to you. So I hope you're having a great day or a great evening wherever you are on the planet. It's later in the evening for me, so it's probably sunny somewhere else in the world, likely a following day type sun. I'll see you in the next video, and I wish you all the best for the week. Take care.